Welcome back to the Block Repair YouTube channel. Today we're going to be working on this Rock-Ola Supersound 2 Jukebox. And we've, in the last part, got this thing actually functional, so today we're going to be doing some cosmetic things. First up, as you can see, these record labels unfortunately keep falling off. This happens with every single one of these I've ever seen. They're just kind of double-sided, not double-sided, just stickers, basically. Oops. And today we're going to be replacing those, because it's really difficult to tell where your record's at when you don't have a label, and then you gotta count up from the closest one that you have. So I bought this Brother label maker, and I also got some 6mm label. It's a little bit larger than that. I believe that was probably closer to a 5, but we'll be able to just fold that a little bit extra over the edges, and I think it'll look just fine. It's far from exact, but it's about as close as we're gonna get. It won't let me print that arrow any closer to the edge. So ultimately, without having to waste a whole bunch, this is the easiest way we're gonna do it. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. A lot of places wouldn't even bother replacing these, but I wanna, so let's do it. Really annoyingly, it doesn't just go 100, 101, 102, 103. It goes 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, all the way up to 190, then it goes back to 101, 111, and it goes on like that, which I didn't print them off like that, so I have to go searching for every single one I want to put on. I should have thought this through. People may think it's controversial that I'm removing the original stickers, but they're held on with all of nothing. It's definitely taking a lot longer than I expected it to take. There we go. That looks absolutely fantastic, and hopefully be a little bit functional for the next person that has to use this thing and me when I put records in it. Now I'm gonna have to clean up this jukebox. I made a horrendous mess. Okay, it's been a few weeks. I don't think some people realize how many projects people work on at the exact same time. I work on way too many at the same time. It's probably unhealthy, but let's get back to working on this jukebox. I went ahead and got a new ROM chip to program for this, so I can no longer have to use the one out of my other one of these, so we can officially fully repair the original motherboard out of this jukebox. Okay, there we go. I got the thing programmed, so now what I'm going to do is put a little sticker on it so it obviously doesn't erase itself over time, and then we're going to plug it in and verify that it works. There we go. We got the Eprom in, so now we're going to plug this thing in and see if it just stays on stuck initializing lock-in like it did with a bad Eprom, or if it goes to normal operations, which is what it should do if the Eprom is functioning correctly. Okay, a little bit of initializing lock-in, that's good. In a few seconds, though, it should go to normal operations. Damn it, why is it not doing that? I figured out what I did wrong. I ordered two different chips for two different projects at the same time. I ordered a 2716 and a 2732. Programmed to 2732, now let's see if it wants to work. I'm kind of stupid. Still doesn't work. That's because when I just recently copied the data off that one to program, I copied it as a 2716. Yeah, it's a 2732. It's not gonna fucking read right, so I guess I gotta read it again, save that file, erase this one, program it again, and see if it works. There we go. That's the stupid LED that has making me suffer for the last hour. The good news is, we now have that chip programmed, I now know how to do it for the future, and it was all my fault for the reasons it didn't work. But now I can finally put this CPU assembly back together, and this one will be all back to its original parts. And then I can put the other assembly in the other jukebox for whenever we make it to our other Rock-Ola Supersounds, because I got a bunch more of these that eventually I'll get to. And now we need to turn this pile of parts back into a dollar bill acceptor that may or may not work. We got a whole bunch of caps, we got a new transistor for there that I actually just installed before I realized I didn't actually film this intro to this, but now we need to go through and replace all of the caps that are still in this thing with the giant DigiQ order I placed. Well, I recapped everything. Now the issue is, how do I put it back together? It's been quite a while, so I guess we're gonna figure this out. How many parts will I have left over? Well, who knows? We're going to build it probably better than the manufacturers and have a lot of parts left over. I just put it together without having any extra screws left over, so let's slap this thing back in the machine and find out that it doesn't work, because they never do. Well, the new light bulbs light up, so that's a good sign. I mean, it's getting 12 volts, that means. Let's see what if anything happens. I put something together wrong, because that does not move smoothly. Well, shit. Unfortunately, it still does not function. It has absolutely zero signs of life. It's like it's not even detecting that a dollar bill is being put into it, but I've checked all the switches are good. So, it's either an electrical issue, or the other issue is that resistor is directly in line with the fancy sensors here, so when that went to basically a dead short, it could have very much sent too much voltage into those things and very much killed this thing. I could spend many more hours trying to diagnose this and trying to get it to function, but at the end of the day, it's an RDAC, very obscure dollar bill acceptor that was only used on this jukebox. And it's one of those things, this jukebox is never going to go into a business. It's going to go into somebody's home. So why? I've never seen one of these dollar bill acceptors actually functional. And if it's going into somebody's home, why should I spend a bunch more hours getting it functional? The issue is, then if I go to sell it, I have to disclose the dollar bill acceptor doesn't work. The other thing I could do is remove the dollar bill acceptor. Hear me out. The dollar bill acceptor is an option that could have been applied to this jukebox when they bought it from the factory. If it wasn't an option that somebody bought, you'd actually still have all the mounts and stuff for it. You just simply wouldn't have the dollar bill acceptor, and on the outer plate here, instead of having an opening for the dollar bill acceptor, there would be a plate back here with a Rock-Ola logo in the middle. What I could do is I could put a plate and put a button there. And that button could trigger the dollar bill acceptor to trigger the machine to think that it got a dollar bill. Again, this is going into somebody's home, and it's not the most elegant way of getting tickets into this thing, is opening it up and hitting the free credit button. And that's what a lot of people do. Most people don't want to have quarters setting here and having to dump them in. I genuinely think that's probably going to be my best option, is to delete the dollar bill acceptor. I'll keep it for parts in case someday I manage to figure out how the hell these things get functional. Again, there's basically no support for these things. They were only used in this jukebox, basically, so it's not really a thing that anyone has ever dove into to find schematics for or anything. But I think that's going to be my best solution, either to remove the dollar bill acceptor and put a plate with a Rock-Ola logo, just like the original one. Unfortunately, I don't have any good photos of what that would have looked like to 3D model a new Rock-Ola logo. I unfortunately sold my only Supersound that had that logo, so unfortunately I'd have to probably not make a very good copy of that logo. So that's probably not going to be the best solution. The best solution, I think, is going to be that free credit button that adds a dollar bill to it. Because honestly, I might end up doing it to my Rock-Ola Supersound if this works well. Because, again, I don't like having to open it up and hit the damn free credit button. Now, the next issue is we need some fluorescent tubes for this thing. And personally, I don't want to buy fluorescent tubes in the year 2024, about to be 2025. I really don't want to do that. But the other issue is, LED tubes this size, I did find them on Amazon, are $25 a piece. That is insanity. And I'm not buying that. At least not for this one. Let's go to my pile of these jukeboxes in the barn, and see if I happen to have some of these tubes I can steal out of them for now. Okay, so this one does have the fluorescent tubes still, so I'm going to pull these out, measure them, see if they're good. If they aren't, then I guess we'll move on to the next one. These are an odd size fluorescent tube, an odd length, which is why they're really difficult to replace with anything other than an original fluorescent tube. And even buying original ones, they're still somewhat expensive and hard to get because, again, they're an odd size. I think they're like 31 or 32 inches. It's not the standard size for a fluorescent tube. So again, the cheapest I saw for LEDs was $25. Alright, so both of the tubes in this one actually measured correctly, so there's a good chance they're good. So I'm going to take them down, and find out they probably don't work. But no, since both sides have good resistance, they're probably just fine. Now you may be asking, Block, what are you going to do when you get to those two when you need tubes? And that's a good question. I got a long time to think about it, so I guess we'll think about it for a while. I've thought about running some like tubes across with LEDs in them, and maybe when I get to these, eventually the LED versions of these tubes, there'll be more manufacturers of them and the price will go down some. I went ahead and gave the door a chiropractic alignment so it actually is even on both sides to the best of my abilities. The issue is, after many years of setting on this one-sided kickstand, as you can see, it bends the door, and eventually it'll wiggle itself loose and make it so it's kind of twisted and make it so it rubs right here. My personal Rock-Ola Supersound does the same thing, and I need to give it a chiropractic alignment as well. Basically, you just loosen up all these screws around the door, twist it the correct direction, and tighten them all back down. Now, what I'm gonna do is run this thing through a nice little stress test. I'm gonna put some records throughout the entire thing. I'm not gonna fill the whole thing up. I'm not gonna sit here and put 100 records in it. I'm just gonna put one every now and then, and I'm gonna let it play through, and I'm gonna have it play both sides of the record, so it's doing double the rotations and all that fun stuff. Just let it burn in for a few hours and make sure that absolutely nothing is wrong with it. I've already left it running for multiple hours, absolutely no issues multiple times, so even with that new chip there. So we're gonna make sure this thing is rock solid before we sell this thing. And now I guess I sit here for the next few hours listening to that. Just kidding, I have work to do. Alright, and now we need to redesign this 200 selections. Now, I'm gonna probably just go design these in GIMP, cut them out on my vinyl cutter, and then I guess we'll have some black vinyl and just click some clear vinyl on the back, and I think that's what we'll do, and we'll have some nice 200 selections again that don't look like that. There we go. It's not a perfect match, but it's close enough. Now let's do the selection one. That one's gonna be more difficult. Okay, so I started printing this bad boy out right here. I got the 200 done. I'll have to see if that's the correct size. Let's print out the we'll print out the selection. I'm sure I guessed right. No, I'll compare it against the actual one. If it's the right size, I'll print out the selection one. And then we can just put some clear backing on the back of these, and I think we'll be good. Comparing it against the original one, it is pretty much spot on. So we're going to cut out the selection one the same size, and we should be good to go. Now I'm going to stick those vinyl pieces on this translucent piece of plastic. That'll give us the nice stiffness so they'll stay in place, and I think make them look pretty good. So that's what we're going to do now. Kind of stupid. I forgot to cut the center circles out. I guess I got to cut them out again. And there we go. We got those nicely applied to that piece of plastic. So let's get these things reinstalled in the jukebox and see how they look. Here we go. Slide that bad boy in there. I'll have to work on getting that in the rest of the way here. But let's slide in the selections. Almost slid that upside down, but there we go. Again, I gotta work on getting those in the full way. There we go. That looks a million times better. That looks amazing compared to what that was. It's one of those things, the small details make a machine look so much better. Whether it was repainting these buttons, painting the numbers back in those buttons, that decal, or even the decals on the actual record player, those there. All of these things make the thing look slightly better, and together, make it look a lot better. Okay, so we got our powder-coated coin door here. We got our fancy new 3D printed rubber grommets. They're printed out of TPU, so they're nice and rubbery. And, yeah, okay. Let's get a lock for that, and we can put that on a while. And then this side of it will be done. That looks absolutely incredible. All that stuff being fresh powder-coated, a brand new vinyl side, the brand new chrome T-trim. Again, we're going to put our plastic piece over here. I think I've decided on that, and the push button that'll just trigger the dollar bill acceptor thing to give it $1 credit. Because, again, I think that would be really useful, and honestly, I might end up doing it to mine, because that would be really, really useful. We got some dirt on this side that we got to clean off, and I actually still need to put the bolts back in for the record carriage right here and here. Have not done that yet, mainly because I forgot to powder coat them, so I need to do that at some point. But once that's done, this side will be done, and then, honestly, the only thing that'll be left is that plate. Electronically, besides for our free play button, we are done, and mechanically, we're pretty much done, too. It's got a brand new needle, it's got brand new rubbers, and a brand new idler wheel under there. It's got pretty much a fully rebuilt motor assembly. I might obviously re-grease that once again right before I sell it. And obviously I played through all these records for a few hours and it plays beautifully. So this thing is honestly done pretty much. Again, we just need to build our custom plate, which I might do another video on, but other than that, this machine is, well, finished. These Rock-Ola Supersounds are one of my favorite jukeboxes. Not only are they awesome looking, they're awesome sounding, and honestly, they're really easy to work on. They're relatively easy to find, too. I personally own 4 of them currently, so it's not that difficult to find, like, parts if you end up actually needing one. If one completely dies, like, I know I have a spare entire turntable assembly. Pretty sure I probably have a bunch of metal pieces. I know I have a bunch of metal pieces for a spare one, because I actually scrapped one at one point because it was completely waterlogged, but yeah, these things are pretty easy to work on. They're really simple. They're one of the simplest jukeboxes. If you're going to get into a jukebox, these Rock-Ola Supersounds are, in my opinion, one of the best ones to get into. They're incredibly simple, no tube amp stuff. I know tube amps, everyone loves them, but they're a lot more of a pain to work on compared to something like this. This is pretty incredibly simple. Now, I say that this one was one of the most complicated ones I've had, especially of the Rock-Ola Supersounds. This is the first one I've had a ROM chip be bad on. All the other ones, it's the power supply. The power supply always fails. There is, I think, 2 or 3 capacitors in the power supply. Every single power supply will have those caps bad if it hasn't been replaced. And you just replace those, and 9 times out of 10, it'll work. I mean, you'll have to rebuild this assembly, re-grease it and everything, but other than that, it usually just functions. I mean, maybe you'll have to replace some caps in this. I have had a tant capacitor go bad on 2 of my boards on these, so that's somewhat common, but again, all extremely simple stuff. If you know a little bit about electronics, these are incredibly easy to work on. Plus, you can absolutely crank these things. Like, you can have it nice and quiet for if you're, like, in your basement, or you can absolutely crank them and just fill the entire room with sound. And even on max volume, they're incredibly clear. But if you like what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe. I know I didn't do terribly much this video, but I've been working on a lot of stuff in the background. And the video that was supposed to go out for this, I forgot to order something for. So that'll hopefully go out either next week or the week following. But please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.